Let's unbox the Micro Galaxy Squadron Series 4 Vulture Droid.
Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it.
Hello there, thanks for visiting Varykino. I am a big fan of the Micro Galaxy Squadron line, but after many months of waiting, I have finally accepted that Series 4 is never going to show up here locally in New Zealand. So I had to look abroad. I checked out Australian Stockist and picked up 3 from Series 4. I recently opened up Gold Leader's Y-Wing, the Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter, and thirdly, I have the Vulture Droid. I am really nostalgic about Vulture Droids. It really makes me think back to the Phantom Menace era when Hasbro released that 3-pack of Vulture Droids attached to that handle so you could fly them around your living room. I absolutely loved that toy. It sat on my computer desk for many years. So I'm really excited to open this one up. It's just already making me feel very nostalgic just looking at it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up really soon, I'll get this one out of the packaging so we can take a closer look at all of the features. But first, let's take one last look at the packaging. Within the Micro Galaxy Squadron line, there are several different classes of vehicles. This one is the light armor class, the smaller of the 2 main bubble carded vehicle lines. The larger one is the Starfighter class, and then of course we have these small mystery boxes and the assorted larger scale boxed vehicles. We can see that we've got the Micro Galaxy Squadron logo here on the front. The silver stripe reads Vulture Droid, and this is number 0034. We have a yellow Series 4 marking down here on the left, and we can see that we have one minifigure, a classic Phantom Menace colored battle droid. I really like the way that the Vulture Droid is packaged here. Some vehicles are a little bit tight, some there's a lot of space around them. I feel like this is quite a good balance here for the size of the packaging. I really like the angle. Now, I had to order this one online. I didn't get to see it in store shelves, so I'm really curious to see about the weathering and all of the details. But one thing that I was really quite surprised is that this one comes with a full second set of wings or legs, because of course this front diagram shows that we should be able to turn the Vulture Droid from sort of a flying pose into a walking one with split legs. This, I think, is going to be my first Micro Galaxy Squadron vehicle with interchangeable pieces. I'm very accustomed to having to assemble some of my larger ships like the Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter. I had to assemble that tail piece in because it was too long to fit into the packaging. This one is going to be my first one with interchangeable parts. I'm very excited about that. The backing card art, we can see here at the top, we've got Vulture Droids and a Attack of the Clones era Jedi Starfighter in there as well. On the back, we have a bit of a hologram projection image here of the Vulture Droid with its wings split apart. We can see that we can put the Battle Droid minifigure into the cockpit, and we can also split the wings here as described. Now, this diagram is kind of curious to me because, of course, this is a range of sort of vehicles. Each one of them from the Micro Galaxy Squadron line comes with a minifigure, as you can see here. But technically, this is a droid itself, not a vehicle. So it's kind of curious to me that they decided to make this an opening cockpit of sorts. It kind of, you can see we've got the battle droid kind of clipping in underneath the head, which I think is kind of an unusual way to do it because technically there aren't really battle droids inside. This is a droid in itself being controlled by the Trade Federation sort of droid control ships up above Naboo as we see them in the Phantom Menace. So I'm kind of curious. I guess I can't complain about getting a bonus figure with this, but I think it's kind of funny that we've got this way of sort of clipping it in there. Of course, we have the cut out and keep collectible blueprint card showing the Vulture Droid in sort of a walking configuration here as well. We can see again, this is from the light armor class, and we can see some of the other vehicles from the Series 4 assortment. I am kind of upset at the selection for the chase vehicles for this particular wave. Series 4 never made it to New Zealand, so I have absolutely zero chance of ever finding the iconic land speeder as a chase vehicle in my local store. If I want to add that one to my collection, and you know I do, I'm gonna have to source it on the secondary market, which I'm kind of sad about. Of course, I want all of these, but that one in particular is a little bit of a sore patch. I really want that ship. It just looks absolutely iconic. But anyway, cool packaging. I ordered this one online, so I am always happy when these things arrive intact because there is so much plastic bubbling. There is just a lot of risk for before crushing. It's always sad. I know I'm going to open it, so I know it's not a big deal if it did arrive a bit dented, but it is always nice when you're excited about your new Star Wars purchase and it arrives looking like you just got it day one fresh at the store. So I'm very excited. It's definitely time to open this one up. Now I have the Vulture Droid, the alternate wings, and the minifigure out of the packaging. Let's take a quick closer look at the minifigure first. This isn't the first Battle Droid minifigure we have in the Micro Galaxy Squadron line, but they are perfect for army building, so I always do like another opportunity to add another one to my collection. We've got an image here of the back in a blueprint style. I'm always impressed with the fine detail of these minifigures. They're so small, but so much detail there. I am quite nostalgic personally for the sort of beige color from the Phantom Menace. It's where we first see battle droids. I think this guy is pretty cute. So of course we don't have too much articulation. You can see the head is sculpted in one piece. It's not going to move. We've got a sort of a droid control backpack here, which does feel like it might be glued on. Usually the backpacks are like on the Mandalorian, we can remove them. This one feels like this one is glued on. It doesn't want to come off very easily. Of course, we have the simple articulation so that we can put his arms up and sit him into a cockpit position. This particular Vulture Droid doesn't have a cockpit, so we don't really need to put him in this position, but we're going to see how well he's going to clip into that little storage spot later on. But of course, we don't have any paint job or anything to go over on this one, but I'm still happy to have another one for my collection. I'm not entirely sure if I'm actually really going to store him in here. I'm probably going to put him beside my AAT tank instead. So let's pop him out of the way because, of course, I'm really excited to take a closer look at this Vulture Droid. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't get to see this one in the store, so this is my first time really seeing it up in close in person. Of course, the first thing that really strikes me is the weathering on this one, a little bit different than what I was expecting. A lot of the weathering of the ships from the Micro Galaxy Squadron line are a grey wash or a bit of a sort of a black wash. This one definitely has a little bit more of an orange sort of brown tone to it, which I don't know that I was entirely expecting. It's kind of a little bit different. We can see that it's got a pretty even wash all over the wings there and on the underside here a little bit as well. I like when the weathering is pretty even. We've got a little bit of a splodge here on the underside, but again, it's not completely throwing it off. You know, maybe it took a bit of blaster fire there on the underside. We've got all of that copyright information there on the underside as well. I don't see any visible screws or rivets on the underside of this particular one. I think perhaps it's a little narrow. Maybe they used glue for the assembly on this piece. So we've got some interchangeable parts and the head should be able to sort of pop up, so we'll take a quick look at those features. Just want to go over the paint job. Some of the Vulture Droids are kind of seen in kind of dark scenes. Obviously space is very dark. We generally see them in space. We do see them in the Phantom Menace in the sort of Trade Federation sort of hangar bay and things like that, but they're generally very dark. The Hasbro versions that came out in sort of the 3.75-inch action figure line all those years ago were very green, and I always felt like that was a little bit of an odd color choice. They didn't quite seem green to me. In my sort of memory from those films, you know, watching them when I was younger, I always envisioned them as being a bit more of the sort of the beige battle droid color because of course they are battle droids themselves, you know, just flying versions. The head here is a little bit darker than some of the other sort of artwork I have seen of them, which I think is an interesting choice. I'm sure there is a reference point for this sort of darker gray color compared to the rest of the body. We've got some painted elements here around sort of the weaponry here. We've got a few sort of simple details here. We've got some black striping details here as well. A little bit of a trim along the top here and on the underside as well. We've got that sort of same head color repeated on the underside as well. Some black striping there. And of course, the other side is going to be the same there as well. It kind of looks a little bit sort of plain here because, of course, we can see that there is actually a split. Now, because we have these second wings, looking through the plastic, I couldn't quite tell if this was sculpted as one piece with kind of just a sculpted line or whether these were actually two pieces here as well. So now that I can actually see it up close, I can see that these are two pieces. So definitely going to check out because I'm curious why they gave us two pieces here and these two pieces. If this one's going to be able to open as well, we've kind of got basically two ways of opening the wings, which I think is kind of interesting. And of course we have some red for the eyes. Of course we see that these do light up on the screen. Of course this isn't going to light up. It's not translucent, it is simply painted on because of course there isn't an actual cockpit underneath. And we've got those sort of dark, sort of blastery parts there on the front as well. So I'm kind of curious to check out that head/cockpit feature. I can see we've got some sort of tabs here to open it up, and I can also see here we've got a sort of a hinge attachment point. So I'm going to see if I can move the head. Yep, okay, so we can get him up and we can get the head up. That was nice and easy. I'm always a little bit anxious when I see these sort of bits to hook your fingernail on. Sometimes they can be very, very tight, but because the head extends out the back here, I could sort of lever it up. And now we've got that sort of head attachment pole there. And we have a ball attachment point. So that is going to let us move the head around to get a little bit of, dare I say, expression or just a posability for the droid here. So we can sort of, it really does remind me of a battle droid, doesn't it? With the sort of the shape of the head on it, the sort of the skinny neck when we think about the classic battle droid. Oh, and I love being able to move it around because of course, they generally look like this when they're flying, but if they're walking, we've got to be able to sort of tip their head up. So I really like that. I was worried when I kind of saw these parts that it was going to sort of clip open like a cockpit in some manner. I really like that. And of course, we can see the underside is not really a cockpit. It's a hollow section with a sort of a clip. So we're going to be able to, if you decide that you want to, it's basically a storage facility to put your extra battle droid minifigure in there on the underside. Of course, this isn't a vehicle, it's a droid. We don't really need to put a droid on the inside, but at least it's a way of storing your little minifigures so you don't lose them because they don't come with stands themselves. They're just going to sort of rattle around on your bookshelf. Very kind of, it's kind of cool. I don't hate it. I know it's not technically correct, but at least we've got a little spot where you can sort of hide that little battle droid figure away, which I kind of appreciate. That's kind of cool. So let's just clip his head back into position. That was actually quite easy to open. I wasn't expecting that. Thought it might be a bit tricky, especially when they give us sort of these lever parts here as well. Okay, so you can see we've got some wings on hand. So let's put the Vulture droid off to the side because I think these definitely look cooler. Personally for me, I always think of them flying with sort of their wings open, and there's just something that just looks a little bit cooler, kind of attack mode, ready for battle about these wings. And you can see we've got a lot more detail with just those sort of painted details here. They just look a little bit more simple. Once we've got the wings split open, we've got all of this fabulous metallic sort of weaponry engine sort of type detail here. And of course, just a little bit more of the fine sculpting that I really do like about the Micro Galaxy Squadron line. And we can sort of see the weaponry on the wingtips here a little bit better as well with that silver detail. Very cool. And we can see the sort of the inner workings and the attachment points. We can see the plastic pegs that are used, and we can see the level of articulation we're going to get from this because, of course, we're going to want to put them into that walking mode. And I have to say, I kind of like the tension of this. There's a little bit of resistance, but I can feel like it's going to be able to sort of hold in place because, of course, we're going to have the weight of the battle droid sort of pushing down on here. So we can get some really cool posing. And this holds it together really quite nicely. We've got a little bit of a distance here because of this peg hole. And we've got two letters here, L2 and R2, which of course is left and right, which I do appreciate when there isn't like an instruction booklet about, making sure that you put these on the right way round. So of course we can see that we have basically the same details, just reversed a little bit. We can see the internal design here. Of course, we've got that sort of internal weaponry there. Really nice. This is kind of cool. I didn't even really appreciate the fact that we were going to have these two separate ones. I thought that if we sort of have these ones, maybe they'll just clip open or something like that. So I'm just going to get stuck straight into it. I'm going to see how easy it is to take these ones off. Okay, because I'm hoping it's not going to be too much of a wrestle. Okay. Oh, okay, there we go. We can see this one says right one or R1. And this one has L1. Cool. So this looks really tiny once I take the wings off. It's just this tiny little cockpit or head section. Okay, so some of the diagrams on the backing card were a little unclear. It looks like there is the function to be able to sort of pull these ones apart. And I just want to see, because I feel like it's going to be easier to do this with the wings off the body. Okay, yes, they do clip open. Okay. This one, it kind of wants to sink back a little bit there, but you can see that we can click them open. It just goes out to there. We can sort of see the weaponry in there. So it's going to look like this one does, but this one clips all the way open. So it kind of looks like these two parts together there. I think that that's kind of interesting that they gave us basically 3 different modes. We've got this mode where it's fully closed up, slightly open to expose weaponry, and then all the way open with weaponry and the ability to walk. That's really cool. And suddenly I'm finding myself wanting to, maybe not quite army build, but I kind of want more of this. There's so many different modes. I think that's really quite cool. So now that I've got the sort of semi-closed arms, wings, legs, whatever you sort of call them, I'm going to pop those off to the side. And let's attach on the legs, because I really want to see this in a walking type mode. Okay, so we've got left, second pair. So let's get those ones on. And then we've got the right side. And I gotta say, I'm glad that these click on fairly nicely. Wow, okay. So just gonna angle his legs a little bit, like we see in the movies. And here we have the Vulture droid standing completely upright. I think this is amazing. I knew that I loved the Vulture droid in flight mode. I think the really winning point on this one is the way that it looks standing up. I was expecting the wings to kind of just form a H shape from the front straight down. I like the fact that they kind of extend outward at the bottom in a little bit more of a pyramid shape. Really nice. And it feels so sturdy with those sort of slightly tight hinges, so they don't just want to splay out with just the weight of the cockpit or head there as well. So let's get him into his full proper walking mode. Let's clip this head up so we can sort of get him up and upright, looking like he does in the Phantom Menace. That just looks so cool. I definitely need more of these now. They just look so cool. I'm just absolutely loving this. Seeing the pictures online, I saw the packaged image. I didn't really appreciate the way that we would be able to turn it from the sort of the flight mode to the walking mode, because of course most Star Wars vehicles don't transform to this level, but this isn't a vehicle, this is a droid. And we do see them change modes a lot in the film. I love those sort of ways where they sort of pop up from walking and transform into their flight modes as well. This is just fantastic. It holds its shape really well. I like the detail. I like the posability here. This just looks really cool. I kind of want to have like a few of them to have in their upright walking mode for my display, as well as, of course, I'm thinking back to my Hasbro Vulture droids with the 3 of them and sort of mounted on that handle in flight mode. I kind of want a few of them together in flight mode, and I want a few of them walking. Honestly, some of the vehicles, I know we want to army build all of the Star Wars vehicles in the Micro Galaxy Squadron, with the exception of maybe, say, the Millennium Falcon. But when it comes to snow speeders, AATs, like, I just want lots of them. But because this one is one of these slightly cheaper vehicles / droids in the line, I'm feeling sad that I never saw this one locally, because I would have bought 3. I know as soon as I open this, I'm just like, yep, I would have bought 3 if I'd found it, because it takes me back to that Hasbro version from the Phantom Menace era. This just looks really cool. I like how big it looks as well. And speaking of how big it looks, let's just take a quick comparison with that Hasbro version. Here we have the Hasbro Phantom Menace era Vulture Droid here on the left, and this one is the Micro Galaxy Squadron version from Series 4. Of course, there is a big size difference, but it's really interesting finally getting them side by side to see the difference in color. I always thought the green wasn't quite accurate to how we see them in the Phantom Menace. To my eye, they always looked a little bit closer to the beige color of the standard battle droids, so I do really like the fact that this one does look more beige, that they didn't sort of go with this sort of green color tone here. Something I do really like about this particular Micro Galaxy Squadron version is the way that they have handled the articulation for the legs, with them being permanently attached to the sort of middle section that then clips into the main body. The legs on the Hasbro version are attached with just these little pins here. So every time you go and sort of adjust the legs independently, there was a risk of sort of popping them off. And as you can see, I'm not really touching the legs in the adjustments because they do want to sort of snap off a little bit. You could get a lot more sort of maneuverability because each one is attached separately, but the small pins do mean that they do kind of want to fall off by themselves a little bit, especially after more than 20 years. They're a little bit more unpredictable, shall we say. I do really like the fact that both of these toys can transform. This one in particular came from that 3-pack that Hasbro released for the Phantom Menace. This one is the first one, the one in the front. That was the only one that could actually adapt into walking mode. The two in the back had fixed wings. You can see that they do not open, and their heads also do not lift off. They are sort of one piece. The ones in the back did have the firing mechanism that the one in the front does not have, and the Micro Galaxy Squadron also doesn't have any kind of firing mechanism either. I think these are quite cute. They almost look like a parent and child off to work. It's just kind of funny. I really like this one, and it's kind of sad that here in New Zealand we don't have any of the battle packs from the Micro Galaxy Squadron line. The very only pack that we have ever seen in New Zealand that had more than one ship in it was the Bunta Eve battle pack with the 2 pod racers. Any of the other multi-packs never made it here to New Zealand, so we've had to buy each of our ships separately, so I only have the one. I know there are battle packs that do include the Vulture Droid, but as it stands, this is the only one, and I still had to import this one from overseas, and I think this one is definitely on my list as a strong contender to army build. I definitely want to get my hands on at least another one so I can have it in both flying and walking mode. I think this just looks absolutely fantastic. I really like the way that it looked in the box in the flight mode, but honestly, I'm just so excited by its walking mode. I just think this looks fantastic. While I was removing the walking mode legs to put the flight mode legs back on, I discovered that the legs do indeed come off that attachment point. I was a little bit worried for a split second. I thought I had snapped something as I was trying to get leverage to pull those ones off, but they just popped off. A lot easier on this side. This one came off in one piece. You can see those attachment points are still intact there. I was really worried I had broken the pegs, but they do just clip off and on. That was a little bit of a relief, and yeah, I guess if you want to play around with a little positioning, you can remove them there. So still learning things as I play with my Star Wars toys. With the Vulture Droid back in its original flight mode, there is one feature left to check out, and that is that under the head storage facility there for our Battle Droid minifigure. We can see that we have a clip there that is used on many other vehicles in the Micro Galaxy Squadron line for holding the included minifigures in place. The Battle Droid has the skinniest legs out of all of the included minifigures, so it shouldn't be any problem at all to be able to put it in place. But let's just test it out anyway. He goes in there really well. I like that. Of course, we didn't really need this extra figure for this particular one because, of course, this is a droid. We didn't really need a minifigure. We don't need a pilot for it, but I appreciate that they still gave us one nonetheless. It holds them nicely there in place, and if I click the head back into position, it's just a convenient place to store that bonus figure. I think that that works really well. It doesn't rattle. I'm probably probably going to forget that it's in there, but I like that I have it. And of course, I can use that figure for army building scenes with some of my other Star Wars vehicles from this line, like the AAT. Speaking of the AAT, here is my one that I have on hand alongside my new Vulture Droid, and I also have the Stap with battledroid here as well. We can see that each of them is a slightly different color. They're not all the same sort of battledroid beige. The AAT is the lightest out of the three that I have, next up with the Vulture Droid, and the Stap is actually kind of a little bit dark compared to those two as well. These two have the same reddish brown wash and weathering, which I quite like. I think it connects them together. This one doesn't really have that wash at all. It's got a bit of a black tone accent to it. Of course, this year is the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace, so I think it's fun that I can build up my Trade Federation invasion force as we see in the Phantom Menace. It takes me back to that really nostalgic era of prequel fandom and prequel era collecting. Of course, so many of us, myself included, started collecting in this era, so it really does take me back. Oh, I just absolutely love this new Vulture Droid from the Micro Galaxy Squadron line, and I know I am already going to track down more of them so I can have it in both flying and walking mode. Absolutely fantastic. I love this line, and I love it when I can add more to my collection. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today as I opened up another Star Wars collectible and had a lot of fun and a little bit of a trip down memory lane as well. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you're a Micro Galaxy Squadron fan, I recently unboxed the Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole Micro Galaxy Squadron unboxing playlist. This is the way.